Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Narrative: The Road to 100 with Black AI Media. I'm your host, Cedric Scott Jr., and I'm joined by another amazing guest. And it just aligned and worked out somehow. I'm not sure, but we're talking with Siobhan Clarke-Joell. And interestingly enough, today is National Data Privacy Day, and CJ,
Yes.
as she's wanted me to call her, works in that space. So this is going to be amazing to get into. But I want to open up space first to allow for an introduction. Tell us a little about yourself. Tell us about the work that you're doing, and then we'll get into our question.
So yeah, I'm Cedric. I'm really excited to be here with Black AI Media. I've been following the work that you've been doing and the conversations you're having, and it's just a really, really amazing platform. So I'm excited to be here. And yes, happy Data Privacy Day, right? This is exciting for me. I've been in this space for a few years. I started off with GDPR as a GDPR practitioner over in the UK. And then I'm originally from Bermuda. So I turned back to Bermuda. And in Bermuda, the regulation, Personal Information Protection Act, PIPA, it was announced, but it wasn't fully enforced. And so I had the opportunity over the time, while I was there to start the group of company with my colleague, my business partner, Tahira Lovell, and my colleague. And she comes from a cybersecurity background. So it was a perfect match of cybersecurity, data protection, and data privacy. And so we started the company and we thought we would just work on consultancy, but it wasn't quite that simple. It really needed to peel back the onion, as I like to say. And Bermuda, we're famous for onions, right? So so peel back the onions, and we needed to get to awareness, raising awareness in the community, providing training. And so we created Bermuda's first and only certified privacy officer course. And it has PIPA specific elements in it. While I was in Bermuda for about 6 years at that time, I became the assistant privacy commissioner. And so my first role was policy and engagement. But then I was asked to form the innovation office. And so it was a really great experience of really keeping my ear to the ground and understanding more in the regulatory space, understanding more about the community and how people receive this, data protection and change in general, to be quite fair. How do they experience societal change, data protection now being a law? And so those 2 years that I was at PriveCom, which is the Office of the Privacy Commissioner in Bermuda, it was valuable, of course. And that alongside my background with GDPR, I'm really sinking my teeth into Caribbean legislation, the US as well, as it was forming, of course, with the states. And so that pretty much brings me to kind of where I am today, where I went from data into AI. And so I'm an AI ethicist and I love this space. I mean, it's such an easy segue, to be honest, Cedric. There are so many principles that are the same. I mean, data is a huge part of technology and emerging technology in general. And so, I studied a few courses at London School of Economics and Political. It was a challenging course. And I did two at the same time: data law, policy, and regulation alongside AI ethics. And I did a few other courses around AI ethics. And so there are many ways that you can get to where you are, of course, today. So having a background in industry, insurance, education, I've been a teacher for a number of years. And the funny thing is, I kicked and screamed when my parents said, "You should be a teacher," not me. So I have a background in psychology, criminal justice, and cognitive neuroscience. And so that alongside the teaching background, and I'm a playwright and a poet. And so the creative side, that part really opened up the technological side of AI. And the creative really opened up when I did a course, leadership program with Mission Impact Academy, MIA. And it was fantastic. It was, they were really focusing on empowering women in leadership roles, or to help you to grow in AI as a female. And so I came in at a great time. I was able able to do a few panels and do a few talks and give and share my piece of the puzzle. I like to say AI is like it's a big puzzle, right? And if you have to focus on your piece, we can't try to do it all. And so that brings me to where I am today with CKC Cares, digital well-being, digital transformation, digital resilience. These are important conversations, the human side. And I think I'm pretty well positioned to create frameworks and other things that I'm sure we'll talk more about because of my background in psychology and education.
So in short, you're a genius. Is what
Oh, please, no way. I'm still learning. Please don't put that on me. I love to learn, and I learn. It's a two-way street. So no, I'm not a genius.
well, we'll let the listeners decide. But it's great. And then you did mention a couple of things that I think that we had some connection on, even just that last piece about MIA AI, Mission Impact Academy. I definitely have had some awesome exchange and experience working with that organization as well. And I mean, that might have been where we come across each other, or I think originally, because even with that, I did a couple of the interviews previously. Kate Carter,
Mhm.
Key Jones, she hosted a panel that I was on through the organization as well, kind of a collaboration. So, yeah, great company.
I mean, the talent, the diversity, the opportunity, the empowerment. I I can't talk to anyone without showing my passion. Okay. I just love it. It's so much opportunity in this space.
It's awesome. And we're glad to have you as somebody working in the space and kind of pushing things forward. And with that, I want to ask our driving questions. What does narrative mean to you?
For me, I'm not a surface person. And so on the surface, narrative, conversation, stories, right? I'm a playwright, like I said, an author, I'm a, poet. And, I work across mediums when it comes to writing, if that makes sense, articles and things of that sort. And so when I think of narrative, it really makes me smile because that means a lot to creative in that way, right? And so for me in this space, though, it really leans on ensuring that one, our stories are told and that they are told in a meaningful way. They're told the way we want to tell them, not fabricated, not his story, whoever his is. I'm not going there, but you understand my point, right? It's our story, so we have to do our part. It's so important that we find our space. That's number one. As I said, it's a puzzle. And so if we're putting a puzzle together, there are many pieces that don't fit connected to another piece. And so I think that in this space, it's very much about being honest about who we are and being authentic, because that's the only way we can truly tell our story. And I think that for so long, we've been taught to quiet ourselves and to know our space and our place to speak. In my work, so yes, I'm the chief disruption officer for the TLC group and co-founder and co-owner with Tahira Lovell. I also have CKC Cares, where I'm the principal consultant. But then I'm in a really interesting and wonderful position because I teach MSc students that are studying management. And so I teach leading through digital disruption, emerging technology, technology management. They've just started a new program that I'll be teaching on management essentials. And so being in that position is really great because you can see how the young people meaning fresh coming out into industry, but then you're also able to inform how they can be prepared for industry. So it's a really nice position to be in. And when I talk with these students, and many of them are from around the world, of course, in university environments, I learn their stories and the cultural differences. And so that is why it's so important for us to have our voice and to develop that voice and to help our young people to have a voice for two reasons. So they can tell their stories, but also I like to say leadership looks different. It's no longer the person at the front. It's no longer the person, the smartest in the room, have all the answers. I mean, you don't want that pressure, okay? We don't have all the answers. And so it's also about empowering our young people to inform perhaps their older siblings or us or their grandparents. Young people there have their head closer to the ground when it comes to technology and all of this change. And so it's no longer where we have the answers. It's about them telling stories and us creating stories together. For me, narratives are also collaborative stories, global stories, empowerment stories. And that's where that piece of, really looking at where the leadership lies in our young people and helping them to see that, not just hushing them, not just telling them there's not a place, showing them there's not a place for that, but here's a place for it. And this is something that we can grow and develop a stronger narrative, if that makes sense, and get our stories a part of what the future is going to look.
Most
So that's
definitely.
what I think of when it comes to narrative and our responsibility as human beings, even our ethical responsibility as human beings to tell our stories. So diversity is embedded in these changes that we're seeing.
And what I really appreciate is the piece about talking and bringing in the youth, especially because someone working in education myself and with that background, and it also I always bring in my son, right? The aspect of being he will be 5 in March.
Oh,
So, but again, the idea of even just paying attention and following the child and seeing progression and learning from them, that's extremely impactful. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because we've seen how quickly our young ones can pick up things.
yes. Oh, yes. And we can't keep up. Just like governments, change with digital transformation, governments are trying to get policy in place. We're going to have to pull back the brakes when those policies come into force. You see what I mean? So it's going to be a lot of this. And so it's the same thing with our young people. We can learn from them and we have to be collaborative about the rules in our household. Those are the policies, right? How they will function using technology. They have to be a part of that conversation. They need to be a part because it's going to impact them.
For sure. And with that, I'm curious too, just thinking about your movement, right, in terms of your journey. We've heard kind of, I guess, where you started, but can you talk a little bit more, I guess, personal aspect of like how did you get started? Where did the whole technological aspect and your focus on wanting to go into data privacy come from?
Sure, sure. And of course, it's not a simple story. You can probably tell. And so, yeah, I mean, it's number one, it's about connecting dots. And we started to talk about that, off camera. It's about seeing patterns and seeing signs. I was working, I had my own business. It was a relocation business at first. I'm here in the UK. And I took a job, like just a Christmas. I needed to break away from being so consumed with my clients and my work. And so that was a leadership lesson, right? That you need balance, right? And so I needed a break. And so I took a Christmas cover, they call it in the UK, but like a contract role and it was just a receptionist role at a law firm. I was thinking I didn't want to take on anything too exciting because I didn't want to get to, move into any other spaces. I just needed a break. Well, the universe tells us what we need, and the universe tells us what we're going to do. And that's what I mean by those connecting the dots. And so I took the role office. It started off as a receptionist. They then asked me to be the law office manager, asked me to stay. I liked it. So I did. And then they decided to send me to study GDPR. And I had the only thing I knew about it was what I had heard about in the news. Now I've not always been a learner type, so to speak. I didn't get serious about education until my last year of high school. when the reality kicked in, you might not graduate. That was the first time I was on the honor roll, Cedric. I was not before that. C student, I didn't fail, but a teacher told me when I was very young, she actually told my mom, well, Shivansha's average, didn't expect much from her. And the power of words of educators for years, my mother and I would go back and forth. I would say, well, like Miss Sanso said, I'm just average. And that would infuriate my mother. Like, what are you talking about? You need to work harder. But anyway, when I went to do the course, I mean, it opened my mind, it opened my eyes to so many, again, dots, because I had already spent years in industry. 2 years here, 2 years there. I worked in insurance. I worked in banking. I had a short summer stint in law, like all over the place, right? But I started working when I was really young too, Cedric. I volunteered when I was 13 at summer day camps as a junior counselor. At 15, I was working in banks as a part-time, summer job. And I would knock out all of the summer student work, the filing and all that boring stuff. I'd knock it out so fast, they had no choice but to teach me the work. So my work ethic was already there. I just could not find my space in all of these industries. They weren't for me. I do this GDPR course, and suddenly it makes sense. You're not necessarily supposed to be 100 years, but 10 years or so in any industry. You were supposed to be there enough to understand where the risks lie, how they operate, those types of things. You're not perfect. You don't have all the answers. So you're still listening and learning, but you have enough base to go into data protection. And so that started. I went back to the law firm, decided after a little while that it wasn't for me there. It never was. Remember, I was only there for a short time. And so I left and I went into data protection consulting. And so I would work with businesses across the UK, small, mid-sized businesses. My largest entity, they took most of my time, and I became first I was their GDPR consultant, then I became data protection officer. And it was a rich experience, Cedric, because they were very large and they had so many different partners. So I was there when they were developing with a healthcare facility. So I learned about data privacy in that environment. You see what I mean? They had numerous hotels and restaurants and apartments. That's what that business did. But they, again, had partnerships. They had everything internally too. So the contractors, the project management, everything was internal. So it was like this social media marketing. It was this wealth of knowledge in this small space, if you understand. And so during that time, I lapped it all up. My husband returned back to Bermuda. I returned with him. And there I started into my journey with Piper and the TLC group. And so in terms of technology for me was second nature. I've always in my roles gravitated to technology. So in every role, always I was sort of a go-to. I'm not saying I was the tech person, but I would wrap my head around the systems and I would, find innovation and how to use them and, work with IT, not crossing the line, but work with IT on what was acceptable in terms of innovation using these systems. So building a website and doing certain things, for me, I wasn't afraid of. And so when I started really getting into cybersecurity, more on the governance side, I'm not in the hard tech, I'm more around policy and training and the governance. That for me was quite an easy segue. Leaning on my training background as well, I had to train thousands of employees through this company that I worked for in the UK. So my training was like amped up 2.0 because I had to do so much of it, right? And so it's really about positioning yourself and seeing your resources at that point in your life. You might have a little bit of resources, but try to capitalize on that little bit of resources. Learn as much as you can, and then the universe gives you more. And now you know how to manage that little, and now you have a little bit more. And you keep building yourself and learning more and more. And so in every phase and stage, if you go to my LinkedIn, you will see a wealth of certificates, tons of things. Some are from, highly reputable entities. Some are for more small. I mean, everybody has to start somewhere. If the material is good, then I think it's worth the certificate. If the material is not good, it's not worth it. It has nothing to do with how long they had their doors open. And so we have to support each other to grow. Everyone starts somewhere. And so I'll end here by saying, I like to say, Cedric, when people say, well, how did you get here? I think of Red from Fraggle Rock. I think of my childhood when I loved the Jetsons more than the Flintstones. I love Fraggle Rock. Red was my girl. Why was Red my girl? She was opinionated. She spoke up. She was adventurous. That is me without apology. And so we come to a place in our lives when we learn that it's too hard to not be ourselves. We have to do that. And once we do that, we realize again our piece of the puzzle and we shine in that way. So I'm not a genius. I'm a genius at being me. That makes sense.
Well said. No, I love that. And I think that that might actually be the title of this interview. We've heard about your work, amazing work that you've done up until now, your movement into the space initially, but then also we definitely want to talk a little bit more about where you are now with a little bit more of an emphasis on AI. But I'm also just kind of curious about challenges that you may have faced throughout that progression, getting into technology, always being someone who's been engaged with using the tech, and other people probably coming to you and say, well, how do I,
Mhm.
whatever. And then building out entities and structures and systems and companies to help other people. Can you tell us about maybe some unique or ununique challenges that you faced while working in the space and on the current projects and initiatives that you have in place?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it really has been a humbling journey. It really has in every way. The honor that I felt when I was advised that I was to be one of the 100 women in AI ethics, for me, it just hit me like a builder. Think of anything else, like a steamroller, whatever you want to say. But it was like, wait a minute. It wasn't like, well, look at me. I still don't feel that way. I feel like I have work to do. I have a mission. I have something that is meaningful that I need to make sure that I'm doing my part. And so that's the core of CKC Cares. TLC was around, of course, for 6 years, advocating for data protection. We are now segueing even into more about sensing change, shaping solutions based on your resources, and then adapting to what it is. For me, a big lesson around leadership is one that I've talked about. So I'll just mention it briefly, but being authentic, understanding that leadership is not about being at the front, in the center. Leadership is about really shining in your space, showing up in those spaces without apology, no pun intended, being fully present as a leader. And so, CAC Cares, we have a leadership a framework. It's spelled EAMP. E is for empathy. First, you're human. If you cut me, you cut you, blood, right? It's going to be red. I like to say to my students, raise your hand if you're going to get green or blue or purple. I want purple blood. I like purple. The truth of the matter, I don't care what the outside looks like, it's red blood, right? And so, it's really about being able to jump into someone else's shoes, understand that as a leader, you need to be an authentic leader. You need to be an empathetic leader. You need to be a resilient leader. You need to be an understanding leader, a mindful leader, a present leader. So M is empathy, so authenticity is mindfulness and is presence. And so I believe that in this space, we need to show up in that way. I had a lot of shadow work to do in my leadership journey, and I think, again, we're still learning, we're still growing. And so I'm still learning and in the process. But for each lesson, they were not just experiences for me. See, when we just take it as that happened to me and not happened for me, as they say, these things are not just things people like to say. They have legs behind them. They are true that we have to understand who we are, understand what we offer, and bring that authentically to any space that we're in so that we can bring our piece of the puzzle. So that was one. Two was that, especially being a female in this space, and yes, being a diverse female, a woman of color in this space. One, I'll say it in two ways. On one side, the diversity and the opportunity in this space is amazing. Find your tribe, so to speak, wherever you feel comfortable, and that's where you need to be. Do not try to be everything for everyone. One of the hardest lessons I learned was just because you're in this space doesn't mean everyone in this space thinks, and not in a arrogant, everybody should think like me. I'm talking about, that it might be a safe space in every space, because not every space is safe just because It's an AI space, right? And so we can get caught up thinking that, in our connections and our networking, that everyone is safe. But you have to remember that different people are here for different reasons. And so if it may not be the puzzle that fits with you, if you understand what I mean. And so it truly is about showing up as yourself and finding your safe space. It's also about creating safe spaces. And so I learned, it wasn't so much learning, it was more understanding that there are people who plant seeds. There are people who garden. Now, I don't want to be judged because I know gardening is a hobby that lots of people talk about. I am not a gardener. Okay? I've thought about it. I love the idea, maybe in my older years, because it's very peaceful. I could tell you all the great things about it. I am a coach. I'm an integrative nutrition coach, as well as a leadership coach, a lifestyle coach. So I've done quite a bit of coaching. You'll probably tell by the way I speak as well. But, at the end of the day, gardening is a great way to relax and to think and to do many. It's just not for me. I know myself, right? I am not a gardener in practical sense, nor in sort of the abstract way neither. I had to learn that. And that's why I went from job to job to job. I was trying to just do a job. I was a single parent, right? You have to make money. You can't just wait until you get your dream job. You have to do it. So your resume may not look as neat as somebody who came out of uni, went into the job, they stayed for 10 years, the opportunities were there. You may not look like that. And that's okay in this space. It's about bringing your expertise. And so there were many lessons along the way. A big one is, I like to say, do not live with your head in the sand, nor in the clouds. Part of the sand is from Bermuda Triangle. Yes, all that great stuff. I won't go into the story of that, but I will say a triangle has three. And you're a mathematician, aren't you, Cedric? So why is Bermuda blamed? That's just one dot. So I'll just leave that, food for thought. But anyway, so living with your head in the sand is just this comfortable place that so many of us are in, where we're comfortable not knowing. Oh, I don't know. Well, nobody told me. I've never heard that word before, but you're not going to look it up. You don't want to know more. Now, for me, that's natural for me. If I hear a word, because I'm a writer, right? So if I hear a word, I'm like, ooh, I might write a play about that. You know what I mean? Like, I just love wordplay. But if that's not you naturally, then there are games you can play on your phone that can help you to be more responsive, will help you to be more strategic, will help you to sense changes are happening. But a big part with change is understanding that it is okay. This is not new. COVID came and it rocked us. But why? At the end of the day, we were not in control. We had no idea what was going to happen tomorrow. That was just a reminder that we are human. Okay, and we are not in control. And to me, it opened the doors, and maybe it's the universe in some way, but it opened the door to where we're going. If you've heard of VUCA, VUCA, volatile, unknown, complex, and ambiguous. This isn't something CJ made up. This is something that's been around through, I believe it was the Cold War, right? And this was something that they said in on the battleground and things like that, right? So, they use acronyms and different things to, get the message out there, right? So obviously I don't know the history that deep, look it up. That's my point. But my point is VUCA is something that it's been there. Right? We don't know. And so being kind to ourselves means that we are aware of things. When you see patterns, you pay attention. You heard it on the news. You saw it on LinkedIn. And so-and-so came in and talked about it. Or you heard it on the radio. Or TED's talk. Or you just heard it on the train. Ding, 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 ding. Maybe you need to just look it up. Be kind to yourself. Small chunks. You don't need to know it all. Just know something in this space. Keeping your head in the ground or in the sand is about being unaware, being ignorant. And when I say ignorant, choosing not to know. There are many instances where we choose not to know. Somebody will say something's happening and you will shut them down because you don't feel like taking it on. You'll say things like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. But if they say, well, what are you overwhelmed about? You can't even say, you just don't want to deal with it. And I respect that. But at some point, you have to stop relaxing and actually get serious about learning something, small chunks. So head in the sand is when we act like we are oblivious. We find comfort in not knowing, in not being prepared. Well, data protection and AI ethics is not forgiving. If you don't know, you need to know. You need to find out because you're dealing with people, you're making decisions. These are things where we do not get to, especially as leaders, act like we just don't know. Head in the sand. Head in the cloud is we're so arrogant. We know it all. I'm a lawyer. I don't need to know anything about data protection. But you're a criminal lawyer. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you don't know anything about data protection, but could you learn a little more? And I'm not saying that lawyers need to study. I'm not saying anything to offend anyone, of course. I'm saying that we are in a space and a time when we need to be more open to not being the smartest person in the room or the person that has all the information. Be open to keep learning. And that's what it means by do not have your head in the sky or in the clouds. Look forward. Horizon scanning means you're seeing across the horizon. You can't see across the horizon if you're looking up or you're looking down. Right? And so this is about us being strategically prepared to deal with the unknown. That was a big lesson that I learned. Just being kind to ourselves. What does that mean? And being kind to others. If we're kind to others, it will come back. The energy will come back to us.
There's a lot of value in what you just said, especially about the head in the sky versus the head in the sand, and kind of looking at both of those, because I know personally I've been guilty of both. And I'll be
Me too.
completely honest, right? And we're all complicit in a lot of these things, and realizing that, and then considering what that looks like going into the future, what it does for, and not only our narrative, but even thinking about those that come after us. When it comes to data privacy supports there, especially considering where we are now with AI and your work in the space. And I just want to know, what is one thing that you want people to know or be more aware of about your work in this space, especially considering where we are with data concerns and all of the things that we're seeing floating around?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Human focused. Like I said, I'm still in education. I'm still very much in industry. We're now at a place, CKC Cares, we're a small team of talent, extremely talented individuals, to be fair, but I could be a bit biased. I've got, some really brilliant researchers on my team and just brilliant minds and diverse minds. So, our work is really around creating frameworks, opportunities for people to be kind to themselves. Exactly what I was saying, right? So, what does digital wellness and well being mean? So, we create tools that help people to just figure out one, what do they need in their bag. So that's another quick point. I talk about bag, meaning your strengths. Erica Badu talked about bag lady. Well, she was talking about baggage, right? Like all the problems that you're got. Well, CJ turns everything, right, into positive. That's just how I am. Okay, we have enough stress, so let's just turn it into positive. And so bag meaning what's in your pocket, Cedric? What can't you leave the house without, Cedric? You see my point. For you, maybe it's a lotion. Maybe it's I don't know. Of course, it's your wallet, right? But there are some other things, private things even, that people will not leave the house without. They'll go home because they forgot this. And so it's really about creating tools that help people to get through this in a healthy way, in an empowering way. So the RAD framework is at the core of what we do. RAD is RAD, and it stands for reflect, analyze, and through analyzing, answering those tough questions, whatever they may be. And then D, discussing, but with diversity. See, the more people you have, the more diverse thought leadership you have in a space, the better the product's going to be. The better the solution, whatever it is, it will be better with diversity. Bag and bleed. So bag, again, your strengths. So whatever you usually have to have before you leave the house, just think about that as your strengths that you bring to anything. Again, showing up and owning the space. What are you good at? But your bleeds are the areas yin and yang. You're not perfect. So what, if you're honest, What are the areas? You know what? I'm very bad at making time, so I have to set my alarm. These things, if you don't set your alarm or you don't do something about your beliefs, they bleed into the organization. They bleed into your life, into your relationships. So we have the beg and bleed framework. And that works for individuals, coaching, but as well as organizations with understanding the human impact, especially around human excellence. So that's a big piece of what I'm doing. A lot of research. It's going to be some articles and things that's likely to come out where I'm talking a lot about what does it mean for human value and excellence as AI continues to blur the lines when it comes to what is AI and what's human. For me, it doesn't necessarily have to be so black and white. It really is about the force that creates the output that the AI, the assistant or tool, is providing you. And so I don't always look at a piece of writing and say, oh, AI wrote that. I'm not interested. No, I'm looking for the human value behind the AI because that alone is a skill. So Beg and Bleed is about helping businesses to get through this digital transformation. Humans are your most valuable asset. But yes, we need to now think about how they're going to continue to grow and be a part of this space. Digital twin self is another thing that we talk about a lot as well. And so understanding that we show up as many versions of ourselves online. How you show up, Cedric, on Facebook might be very different to how you are on LinkedIn, to WhatsApp. But then you have to deal with your physical self too. And how many physical versions of yourself you also have to deal with, right? So we are dealing with all these versions of ourselves. Some of them could have been traumatized through digital means. We're now a generation where people could have been hurt online. They could have been embarrassed online. And maybe they're not so open to use technology in their personal space. They don't use it. So at work, forcing them to use it in order for them to move through digital transformation means we have to pull back the layers, and we need to have real conversation at human level so everyone has a base level of moving forward with digital transformation. That is what the Beg and Bleed, the digital twin self, and digital saboteurs, those types of conversations is where we really bring those insights around what is stopping you from being successful in this space.
And I think the refreshing part about this is that I'm going to go back and rewatch this interview. As you know, with anybody else, I'd encourage them after watching it, of course, the first time, go back, check it out again, because I think what you're laying out for us in some of these frameworks, the acronyms, the bag and bleed. I was like, oh, like that, especially when you talk about relationships in our personal lives. I'm going to go back and definitely reflect on that because there's more to this than just being caught up in the matrix, and I appreciate
Mhm.
really walking us through that from that lens and perspective, because we can get so caught up in the ones and zeros, of these algorithms, and not necessarily remember that we're still people working. Everything's not digital. So I appreciate that. And I want to go ahead before we, of course, have everybody hear where they can connect with you and actually partner or become clients. I want to ask you the big question: what legacy do you hope that your current work leaves behind in the world, in the space? How do you want us to remember you, CJ?
Do you know what, Cedric? That is it's like the biggest and the most profound lesson that I've learned today is around spirituality and understanding that we are just floating through this space. It's about us. It's like a relay, right? It's about what we do in this lifetime when we pass it on to the next person that continues to develop this space. We have done our part to take humanity further into the future. And so for me, when I think first of the engagements that I have with students, I really enjoy having these conversations, dropping some of these, talking about what BEG needs, talking about beyond just the slides, but how they need to think about leadership. I tell them that you're going to be you 2.0 when you graduate. And so really think about what type of leader you will be. There's people who go down in history with negative reputations as leaders. We are all in a place where we can make a difference. So how we show up matters. And and so In education, for me, it's about that. It's about when these young people move on with their lives, that maybe one day a jam or something that CJ said, I dance in class, I do all sorts of stuff. They never know what to expect, but I make it fun and engaging. And there is something like about being agile, be agile. That's going to stick in their heads. Like, so what if you lose your job? You keep moving. You keep figuring out what's next, what's for me. And so these are small things that we leave our legacy by being positive and passing on our lessons. So that's number one in leaving legacy. Number two is, yes, the communication, networking, engaging with like-minded individuals, professionals. This is a very stressful space. We can try to ignore it. We can pretend that everything's fine, but behind closed doors, we have to be honest. We're just as nervous as everyone else. Don't have all the answers, all of those things. And so wherever possible, I try to empower or to inspire or to just celebrate people, because they just need that encouragement to keep doing this important work. That falls within ethics too, that they have the endurance that they can keep going with the message, right? And so that's super important. And then lastly, it's our frameworks. CKC cares human first. Everything we do is about people. The frameworks are unique, they're quirky, because yes, they'll feel a little different, because most frameworks are about organizations, operational efficiency, digital transformation. It's not about people. And so, yes, they may sound a little weird, beg and bleed, but relatable, aren't they? When you think about it, yeah, I do have certain strengths. I do have things that if I don't pay attention to, they'll bleed into my life. And so these things are practical. And so people who are interested in partnering, we're excited about that, because it's about collaboration. And that's the last thing I'll say about legacy. It's all about collaboration. Again, a piece of a puzzle. So you don't have all the answers. Cedric, I am not a mathematician, okay? Yes, cognitive neuroscience, psychology might put me over in STEM, but no, I am not into math, okay? Statistics at Temple, I cried. I got a B plus, but I cried, okay? I am not super into math. I'm very much into people, psychology, reading, writing, creating. That is me. And so we work with technology types of entities who don't want to take on the AI ethics and the human piece. You don't have to. It's a puzzle. If you're good at technology, you can contact us at CKC Cares. We can partner with you to help a client make sure that their team can truly understand the value of the AI tool or the product that you're offering, so that they can understand how they will get through this change at their organization. Now, I think everybody has a duty of care, of making sure that we do our part to help humanity to get through the next steps, not just worry about ourselves and our growth. And so, yes, technology types of entities, we'd love to work with you. Schools, of course, thinking differently. We do have our digital escape room, is a very unique way of teaching children around, and adults. I believe that learning through fun helps people to be more strategic. They remember it better than when they were stressed or bored looking at slides. If they remember it through something fun, it's like second nature. Okay, we had a breach. We need to do this. We need to do that. So data protection, that was your question. Data protection ties perfectly into AI. It was an easy segue. Data is one of the top 3 areas of AI. Many will say there are 3 parts of AI, and data is a key part. It cannot function unless it has something to eat. And what it eats is data, like we eat vegetables. And so data protection is even more important, because these tools can make decisions. That's the whole point. We're excited about what it can do, but it means that it puts us at risk. And I believe that, and when I say at risk, we can contain it, but we have to be responsive, and we have to be holistic in our approach. We have to be thinking about humanity and not just ourselves, because it could impact your family. It could impact someone else. We have become so cold, so disconnected because of so much that we've been through as people. But I believe that AI and emerging technology is going to rip apart the band-aids. It's going to show us where the gaps are when it comes to humanity. And we need to be ready with responsive ways that we can approach digital transformation as human beings, whether it's keeping people in work or being realistic. It's not the work they want to do. So how can we get them doing what they want to do? Let's have real conversations, not just people doing jobs to get paid. We're now going to see you can't get away with just butts and seats, so to speak, just going to work 9 to 5. You might have to do a little bit more. They may not need you anymore. They have AI agents. So if you are just keeping the chair warm and not really interested, maybe you have to have a real conversation with self. Do I want to do this? If not, what do you want to do? There are small courses you can take, bite-sized chunks, start making your move, start planning. So we do coaching, as you can probably guess, whether it's career coaching. If you want to get into this space, we do coaching. If you want to understand how to deal with this space and to be resilient, we have coaching as well. Of course, we have digital sound therapy, drumming therapy. It's my husband, as a matter of fact, and he has a rich background in drumming. He's now turned that into, he's a qualified sound therapist. He's very much about the healing aspect. And so we tie it into digital well-being. And so whether it's a 15-minute, I just need a break. And you want to hear a little rhythm to get yourself going. Maybe your deep end is about chakras and you want to understand, how to really think in a different way. Maybe it's to get your teams on the same page, because that is how we approach digital transformation as human beings, getting our teams on the same page so we have human excellence and value at the top and at the center of everything that we do. Human excellence by design.
Love it. This has just been, I mean, your energy it's infectious. So I know I got it. So when people, whether they listen to it, watch this, I hope people watch this and actually get the full experience. I'm glad that you tied that up really nicely with what you have of value to provide for other people. Can you share how people can connect with you to get access to the amazing work that you're doing, to support and also potentially be clients and work with you as well? Where can we find you? Where can we go? How do we tap in with you and CKC Cares?
Sure. So, of course, the most obvious is www.ckccares.com. There you can get more information. But outside of that, I am on LinkedIn. If I can be totally honest, for the first time even saying this live, I am not the best social media person. I'll be honest. Okay. It's better to get me like this. Let's have a real conversation if you want to connect. If you want to pick my brains on, well, what are students saying? How can we prepare for the next generation? Let's talk. If you want to talk about, I'm a student going into industry, what can I do? If you want to talk about how you can show up, how you can stay relevant, stay excited about work, figure out what your next steps are in a non-judgmental way, safe space. I'm not very judgmental in that way. So definitely reach out on LinkedIn and hopefully we can take it off of LinkedIn. That's my point. And maybe we can have a chat just like this. And outside of that, I think those are the best two ways to get in touch with me, through the website and LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And thank you so much. Again, we really appreciated you taking the time to share your narrative, offer the insights. I feel like this has been a coaching session for me. The check's in the mail. I got you. Thank you. And again, CJ, Siobhan, Clarke-Joell, thank you so much for everybody that's been tuning in to Narrative, the Road to 100, all of the work and efforts that we're doing at Black AI Media. Thank you very much. Continue to come back, support. If you haven't already, be sure to go and check out the other interviews for Narrative, the Road to 100, as well as check out the resources. There is an image gallery that's now available, a Green Digit Academy for learning. And of course, make sure you get your Black AI Media merchandise. And I am the algorithm, all the cool stuff. But with that, wish you all the best. And with this, of course, being Data Privacy Day on the recording, be careful, protect your data, be mindful. Again, it's important. I just want to stress that. Thank you all so much. CJ, again, I appreciate you. We look forward to supporting your work, uplifting you, pushing you forward.
Thank you, Black AI Media, and thank you, Cedric. I
Like,
appreciate you.
thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Peace.